All right, so when you get to the point where your block is all carved, we're gonna start a process called proofing. And this is essentially testing the block to make sure that everything that we want is carved out and then making any adjustments. It's kind of like a rough draft. So you'll grab a newspaper, get that laid out in your spot. You'll also grab one of the pieces of plexiglass to get that laid on top. And then you'll also grab a little bit of ink. We're just gonna use black ink for the proofs. And then with these, you'll also wanna grab a palette knife, one of the spoons, and then one of the brayers. With the ink, these will come in large bottles. So what you'll do is you're gonna take the palette knife, take a little bit of ink. A little bit goes pretty far with these. Usually what I'll do is kind of just get a row of that up at the top. And then what I'll do then is kind of remove any excess from the palette knife. I'd say wipe off as much of that excess as you can and then close that back up so it doesn't dry out. And then from here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to get the ink spread on the brayer. So with this, we essentially want really nice, thin, even coverage on the brayer before we start applying ink. If it's too thick, any of the carved marks are gonna fill in. So when you start to get that out, usually what I'll do is get a little bit on the brayer. I'm gonna change direction a few times until I'm seeing nice coverage. And then you're gonna look for a consistency that looks a little bit furry. And then you'll also notice that there's a certain sound that you'll notice kind of changes as well. So when you get to the point where you're noticing that kind of sticky sound, you're also noticing the ink kind of look almost like velvety or furry, then what you'll do is you'll start to apply that from your block. Usually what can be helpful with that is to start in your middle and then to work your way out to the edges. Usually you want to have your brayer over majority of the plate at once. This way you don't have it get unangled and then fill in information that is unintended. I'll usually do a few passes back and forth, also change directions to make sure I'm fully getting everything covered and coated. Once I'm happy with coverage, I'll set my brayer to the side. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna lay, for the proof, it's just gonna be newsprint. When you get to the final prints, it's going to be the nicer either white or colorful paper. And then when you are ready to print, you'll get that pressed down. I usually start in the middle, work my way out to the edges just to make sure everything's fully adhered to the block. And then once I have kind of everything adhered, nothing's shifting around anymore, then I'm going to switch over to my spoon. And then using that flat edge, essentially what I'm going to do is essentially kind of burnish into the surface. This is going to help pick up any of those spots that were inked a little bit less. It's going to allow for a better quality and more solid print, and it's going to avoid some of the static that can happen, especially if you do a light printing. But that'll be process for printing. Once you feel like you've gotten everything, I would say really make sure you're going over your edges. That's usually where people forget or miss spots. You're going to peel off that piece of paper. And then for the proof, this is where we're going to start to look at some corrective measures. So I'm going to look at any place that I had where carved information ended up reading that I don't want, so then I can kind of just visually mark those. If it's helpful, you can go in with a marker and either circle these or notate these. Otherwise, you can just kind of have this to the side as you make those corrections. And then I'm just gonna look for any areas that I don't really like the look of. You might have some of that carved texture that you like and it's not a bother, but you might have some areas where you want to go back and correct. So this proof is going to be that moment to make those corrections, to make those changes before we get into the final prints. And then after that proof run, you're going to wash off your block in the sink. One of the green scrubbies is usually pretty helpful. Get it patted dry, and then you'll carve out any of that excess information that printed that you don't want it to. And then once you are happy with that block, you'll go back, do your printing. It'll be pretty much the same process that we just did, and then we'll start with cleanup. So for cleanup, you're gonna take any excess ink, scrape that off with the palette knife from the plexiglass. You can remove quite a bit of excess and return it, especially for these solid color applications with the bottles. We'll get that put back in, and then we'll take the plexiglass brayer, palette knife, linoleum block when you're done printing. All can get taken over the sink. Use one of those green scrubbies and a little bit of dish soap to clean it up. But that'll be cleanup. Newsprint or newspaper, if it got really dirty, you can throw it away. Otherwise, if you didn't get too much, just get it folded back up and returned. Otherwise, that is everything. Let me know if you have questions.